Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest in the series Bye Bye Windows, Hello Linux. Today we're going to install Manjaro Linux. This is so that you've got a chance to see different types of Linuxes, different distributions of Linux, and help you decide which one will be best for you. So let's get started. First of all, you need to go to the Manjaro website, which is manjaro.org, and you can click on Try Manjaro, and then Get XFCE. This will take you to this page here where you can decide which version to download. If you have a 64-bit machine, which most people have, then this is the one you want, the top one. But if you've got an old machine which has very little memory, that type of thing, then this is the one you want. When you click download, it will take you to a download page, and the download will start automatically. Now I've already done the download, so I'm going to cancel this, because I've already done the download. It's a bit confusing, this page here, but the download does actually start automatically for you. Okay, so I've done the download. That's difficult to say on New Year's Day. I've done the download. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a virtual machine to install it. So, okay. So, this is what happens when you run the ISO. You get, I'll just stop this. Okay, you get the startup screen, and you can choose which one you want. Now, what we'll just do is we'll let this install, and what we will get is the opportunity to play with it before we actually install it. So that's one of the nice things about the Linux distributions, is that you can put them onto a USB drive, you can put them into your computer, you can play with it on the USB drive without actually installing it to decide whether you like it or not. And you can have a good look through the whole system without actually installing it, and then decide whether it's the one for you. Now this has the XFCE desktop, so we'll just remove that, and so it looks a little bit different from the Cinnamon desktop which you get in Linux Mint, but it does look probably a little bit more like the Windows version. So when you first come in, you actually have this documentation. You can see various different things like you want. So if you're going to decide to install it, this is the one you want to do. Or if you close this, which is what I'm going to do, then you will actually find that you can install it here. It says that there's a package to install. Well, it's very nice of it, but I'm not going to install the package just yet. Okay, we can do that in a moment, so we will close that. So let's have a look at the interface. It's a little bit more Windows-like if you ignore the desktop at the back, and you can actually change that by right-clicking on it, and you can come down to desktop settings, and you've got the various different things that you can do. So if you prefer a different desktop, you can install a different one. I know that this is quite a popular one that's used by a number of things. You can actually change how the menus are and what they actually look like, and also the icons and that type of thing at the top, and also the icons that you have down the side. So for example, we actually have a number of icons on here, and we can actually remove those so that they don't appear if you wish. Okay, click close. You have the system tray, which gives you again the main pieces of information. Here it's telling you that there's an update available and various other pieces of information on here, and you've got your start menu just here, which is a bit like the Windows start menu, but again it's got this section at the top where you can actually type in your details of what you want to actually run, so it'll actually be a lot quicker. So for example, Office, you've got some Office items in here, but strangely this hasn't got the full Office on. I believe that's because this is the trial version and we'll have to actually install it, which I'm going to be doing in a few moments. Do that, but you'll find that there's a number of actual items. It's very similar to all of the Linux packages. You get a number of items that are here, so not something that you have to worry about on that. So let's come out and we will actually install it, so you can see what the installation process is like. Okay, so this is the installer. You get the choice of language. If you remember from Linux Mint, you had the same thing as the first one. Which version? I'm British English, so I select British English. And again, this is the same screen. Well, you're basically doing the same thing, so the screens are going to be very similar that you're going to see. So I'm in London, so next. Okay, this time it's actually selected my English keyboard, which is very good. So next, and we can actually see that I've got a virtual hard drive, which I've done, and so you can actually do a manual partition and resize it all yourself, but I'm not going to do that at the moment. You can actually see what's going to happen. So we're going to erase this disk. This is what you'd probably do if you've just got one disk on your system. You just go into erase the disk, okay, and you want no swap. That's because that will mean that it will actually create a swap file rather than a swap partition, and a swap file is actually slightly better than the partition. So next, your full name. So I'm John Lavelle, and we're going to call this John Manjaro, and again we have to give it a password, so I'll do that. Remember that it has to be a password that's easy to type and easy to remember. Again, you've got your login automatically, which you don't really need to do. Use the same password for the administrator account. This is actually a good idea. And what this will do is that if somebody tries to log in as root, or if you need to log in as root, then you can use the same password for any reason at startup. If there's a problem, you can just use your password. If not, you need to give your administrator one, and this is actually slightly better than the Mint system, where you've actually got to create a new password, which I haven't shown you on the setup, but I did show you if you have a look through the setup videos I have for Linux Mint, which I did about a year ago. Next, okay, you can decide which Office suite. Now this is a very good idea. LibreOffice is the one I know, but you can actually have FreeOffice, which looks a bit more like the Microsoft one. It has it's very similar. A lot of these are similar. I'll go for the LibreOffice because it's the one I know. No, I won't. Let's go for FreeOffice because we did LibreOffice on the other one. Let's look at FreeOffice on this one. So next, this is an overview of what's going to happen. So you can see it's going to set the time zones, the types of keyboards, what it's going to do with my hard drive, and then we'll click install and it will come up and ask you if you want to install it. So I'm going to click install now, and what we'll do is we'll come back once it's finished, because this is going to take a few minutes to install. Okay, as you can see, it's finished installing. It didn't take very long. Just a couple of things while we're on this page before I do a restart. I didn't really mention the buttons down here. You actually have two different workspaces available. I haven't really talked about workspaces, but as you can see, if you click you can have something different on one workspace, and on another workspace it's a bit like sort of swapping between two screens, or more than two screens if necessary, so that you can actually do multiple things on the same computer. Very useful idea, and of course you can actually minimize all the open windows on Linux. On Mint, Linux Mint. It's actually here. Now, if you do like this desktop, then you can actually have this system for Linux Mint. They do the XFCE desktop as well, so you can just download that one instead of that. Okay, so we're going to do a restart and let's see what happens. Okay, so we're now rebooting, so let's just see what happens with the system. Okay, so that took a little bit of time just to find everything, so we need to log in. You did remember your password, didn't you? Log in, and the first thing I'll do is I'll resize the screen so that it fills the complete screen. Don't show this message again. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is resize the desktop, and we'll see if we can do it from desktop settings. So background style, change the background. Come on, we'll go back into that one. So that looks good. You can't see the buttons on the bottom, so it'll probably want to do this update again. Right, so what I'm going to do is we're going to go into settings and we're going to resize the screen first of all, because you actually do have a bit of a problem here. So we're going to display and 800 by 600, and we want 1280 by 960. And this is a problem actually, not being able to see it. Apply, yes, and close. So we'll do that, and then on view we'll adjust window size, which always for some reason puts it onto the other monitor. So that is a bit of a problem when you start up. You can't actually see exactly what you need to do, which is a little bit of a problem. Anyhow, the first thing it wants to do is do the upgrade, so we'll apply that. And of course it wants your password. You'll find with all Linux systems, it doesn't matter which one it is, that it will want your password. Okay, so the system is up to date. That's what it says. You have a little menu that you can see various details on here. Okay, so the first thing for you to do is to go through the documentation, and if you need anything doing, they're here. So if you need help, it's here. But let's have a look at what's been installed. So first of all, let's go to Office, and as you can see, we have FreeOffice installed. So let's have a look at TextMaker, which is the word processor. This might take a moment. Looks to be a problem with TextMaker on here. So it looks like there is a problem with FreeOffice, so I would use LibreOffice if I were you. Right, let's go into settings and have a look at some of the settings. So you can change the appearance, the desktop, file manager settings, how the panel is at the bottom, and if you remember rightly, I like the panel to be quite small. So row size is 36. As I say, I'd much rather be able to just type it in than do this. I don't like these slider bars. Okay, so that's better for me. The appearance, okay, we'll use just of that. So down the icon size just slightly, which makes it a bit better for me. Okay, so you've got your preferred applications, the display, the mouse and the touchpad. It's more or less exactly the same as you saw in Linux Mint. You have a firewall configuration, again, If you're behind a firewall, this is optional but a very good idea, and it is of course the same firewall that we had previously, so just activate it and that's it. Now if you do have a problem accessing documents on a different computer, then deactivate it, access the other computer, and then remember to reactivate it. Okay, you've got various different other items. You've got, for example, the Manjaro Settings, so you can change language packs, this type of thing. I wouldn't change the kernel. I would leave the kernel, because this distro has been set up with this kernel and it knows this kernel best. If you need to add a user, you can do it here. If you need to change your date and time. If you've got problems with your hardware, and say I'm on a virtual machine, so this should be just the various standard ones, and there won't be very much I can do about changing this. As you can see, it's installed. I can actually do the Visa one. There's not really much I can actually do to change that, but if you're not on a virtual machine, you'll be able to actually put in your hardware and so on from there, which is a very good idea. Okay, right, I think that looks at Manjaro. As I say, it's very similar. I would use the LibreOffice because it looks like the this office actually has a problem. XFCE desktop, it's a little bit different from the way that the Cinnamon desktop in Linux Mint works, but if you prefer this desktop, it's also available in Mint. This uses a slightly different version of Linux to Linux Mint. This uses Arch Linux, whereas Linux Mint uses Ubuntu. But I don't think until you become proficient at using the Linux, that really doesn't matter what version of Linux you're using, just as long as you can do the tasks that you would normally use. So, for example, you've got yourself a file browser here, and again you can see we've got the various different items that you can have. Nice clean system, easy to use, and I think you'll find that if you're running on a low powered machine, then this is probably a good one for you. Okay, so to log out, it's this button here. You got your switch users, you can lock the screen, and again we went into all settings here. You've got the terminal emulator, which is just the same and as on other Linuxes, or nearly the same, and I don't really like this idea where it's semi-transparent and you can usually set it off. Stop. Where are we? Transparent background, solid color. Okay, close. That's much better. I mean, you can just type in your various different commands to see what's what. So I mean, you'll have the usual text editors and things like that, which are available in most of the system. Most of the Linux systems will be available from here. Okay, so let's try. There we go. Powers off the system. And that is Manjaro. Thank you for watching.